Warm greetings from the high 10. It's everybody. It's everyday shenanigans. I don't say it's everybody shenanigans. Thank you all for joining me. I'm a little off today. I'm sorry I'm running late. The commentary I'm going to play is Court TV. It's pertaining to the protective order. He's going to have panel guests to chop up what was said pertaining to the protective order, the given opinions by the panel guests. And this live is an all-inclusive live pertaining to the protective order, which I have already done a video on the said information. Please go into YouTube queue to refer to that said information if you need verbatim what the protective order is pertaining to and the logistics in the order. I also want to talk about the timeline of the knowledge of law enforcement and the district attorney's office. When did they know that the children were deceased? Because that is going to play a pivotal role when this trial starts pertaining to Jacqueline and Trezell, because it will be very disturbing to know that you, the state, had knowledge that the children were deceased, and you continue to let Jacqueline and Trezell West see their children. I would like to get a due date of when they knew, because the case was turned over 1 week after the 911 call. So in that turnover to Bakersfield Police Department from Cal City, was it known that the children were dead, which would have been the end of December of that year? Which we now know that Jacqueline and Trezell had 2 visits a week with their children. So how long did they visit with their children? When was their last visit with the children? And when is the exact time that Ellie knew the children were dead? And did they notify, of course, Department of Human Services of the deaths of the children? And did the Department of Human Service allow these two to continue to see their children, knowing that the state and the detectives had information that the children were deceased? And also, in this commentary, you will hear someone give their opinion. I believe it's a private investigator. She's a female. She doesn't believe that foster care parents should get paid. That is also a part of my topic. Should foster care parents be paid? And also, who all knew that the children were deceased on that December 21st when that hoax was performed via a 911 call? Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. If you want to donate to this channel, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Super Chat to welcome during the live. Thank you so very much. This is Vinny Politine.
I'm Vinny Politine. Great to have you with us here on Closing Arguments. This hour we begin.
Whoops, sorry about that.
We begin with a story we've been covering for quite some time now. And every time we talk about it, I know your hearts break at home. It's because it's a story about children, 2 children, brothers, little Orrin and little Orson. They didn't have the best life. They ended up in foster care because there were some problems at home. Then they get adopted. And then they get adopted and they disappear. Just disappear. Now they're parents. The ones who adopted them. The ones who said, we will make your life better. The ones who said, we want to take care of these children. And they were given the gift of allowing, they allowed these parents to have these children because they're a gift. Children are a gift. It's not a burden. It's the toughest job in the world, but it's the greatest job in the world. And they were given this gift of these 2 beautiful children. 2 little guys, and they're both gone, missing. And now mom and dad are accused of the murder. Got a big update on the case, a big development tonight. But for those of you who don't know the story of the Cal City toddlers born in Orson West, Brianna Willis from our affiliate KERO has a look at the timeline of this story.
This is the world's first reusable copy.
Sorry about that, you guys. They got to get their monies.
Of this story.
Ooh, wait a minute. I don't know what's going on. These menus are jumping over one another. Sorry about that. Having difficulties.
Closing arguments. This hour we begin with a story we've been covering for quite some time now, and every time we talk about it, I know your hearts break at home. It's because it's a story about children, two children, brothers, little Oren and little Orson. They didn't have the best life. They ended up in foster care because there were some problems at home. Then they get adopted, and then they get adopted and they disappear, just disappear. Now their parents, the ones who adopted them, the ones who said, we will make your life better, the ones who said, we want to take care of these children. And they were given the gift of allowing, they allowed these parents to have these children because they're a gift. Children are a gift. It's not a burden. It's the toughest job in the world, but it's the greatest job in the world. And they were given this gift of these two beautiful children, two little guys, and they're both gone, missing. And now mom and dad are accused of the murder. Got a big update on the case, a big development tonight. But for those of you who don't know the story of the Cal City toddlers born in Orson West, Brianna Willis from our affiliate KERO has a look at the timeline of this story.
Where are the boys? Where are the boys? Where are the boys? Where are the boys? It was December 21st, 2020. Oren and Orson West, also known as Classic and Sincere, were first reported missing in California City by their adoptive parents, Terzell and Jacqueline West. Days after that time, the West parents telling 23 ABC they understand that people would accuse them of the disappearance.
That's understandable. What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
And the Cal City Police Chief John Walker assuring the community his department was looking for clues day in and day out at the start of the investigation.
We're just trying to dig up anything, any clues that we can possibly find to find out where they had gone and also to confirm that they're not in the backyard.
The disappearance prompting a massive search effort involving not only Cal City Police, but the Bakersfield Police Department, the FBI, and the community. Then month after month, the community rallied together for searches, marches, and vigils, all to find the boys.
Where are the boys? Help me! Help me! Where are the boys? The boys! Help me!
And reward money for information and the return of the boys continued to grow in 2021 as local businesses, community members, and a private investigator joined the search efforts for the boys.
There were some elements that stood out about the foster families interviews that pretty much compelled me to participate and come out and do what we could to help find both of these boys.
Billboards with the boys' faces and the rewards started to appear in February 2021 in Kern County. But after 8 weeks, Cal City Police confirmed they have no suspects in the case. On March 1st, 2021, the Bakersfield Police Department officially took over the case. They continued the search in Cal City and Southeast Bakersfield for the boys, issuing a search warrant to the adoptive grandparents and more than 20 more search warrants in the case. It wasn't until June 2021, BPD gave an update on the case, announcing 170 items have been seized, 83 individuals have been interviewed, 44 search warrants have been conducted, 16 mass area searches have been done, 3 searches outside of California, and 200 plus tips have been received and followed up on, but still, the boys have not been located. Then month after month, the community continued to come together with prayer vigils and hoping for answers for the boys. By December, nearly 1 year after they were first reported missing, BPD provided an update saying since June, they executed 4 more search warrants, interviewed 33 more people, conducted 11 mass area searches, and 4 out-of-state searches. During the 1-year anniversary, we spoke to the biological family who said they just want answers.
Some kind of answers. It's been a year. We deserve something.
Yes.
That's. I mean, it's only right.
Orson's biological father saying regardless of the circumstances, he will always be here for the boys.
I still got them. They should know that I still love them, that I'm always going to have their backs regardless of the fact those are my kids. Like, you know, that's something that you'll miss in life that you can never get back.
Now, just 14 months after they were first reported missing, the Kern County grand jury indicted the adoptive parents, Terzale and Jacqueline West, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. They were arrested March 1st around 7 p.m. near Highway 58 in Enos Lane. Kern County District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer announcing the investigation unveils that the boys are dead. But Zimmer added that the bodies have not been found, and now the family is still searching for answers.
Question is now, where are the boys' bodies? We want to be able to bring them home and, give them a proper burial.
Now the big news tonight, and I think this is very telling and could give us some insight into some of the evidence in this case. The judges confirmed that a criminal protective order was granted in this case. What does that mean? It means that the judge, Chad A. Louie, granting a criminal protective order. Public wasn't allowed into all parts of the hearing, but local media that attended part of the Tuesday hearing reported that the protective order was to prevent the couple, the accused murderers, from contacting their biological and adopted children, the other 4 children. Reports also indicate that the prosecution's motion seeks to stop the parents from talking about the case with the kids or persuading or intimidating them. Are they going to be witnesses in this case? Is that possible? That one or more of the other 4 children in that home? That one or more of the other 4 children in that home know something, saw something. Let me bring in tonight's guests. We've got a great panel tonight. In Los Angeles, California, retired FBI special agent and producer of Indivisible Healing Hate, which is streaming on Paramount Plus, Bobby Chacon is with us. In Chicago, Illinois, private investigator Erica Morse. In Lancaster, California, joining us by phone is Matthew Wallace, from the AV News Crew channel on YouTube, AV Antelope Valley, where all this is happening. And in Denver, Colorado, reporter has been covering this case from the beginning and is now a reporter with our great affiliate KMGH. Denver 7, Bayan Lang is with us as well. Great to see everyone. Bayan, I want to get your reaction tonight to this development. The development that there's an order preventing these parents, these accused murderers, of their 2 youngest children from contacting their other 4 children.
Yeah, I mean, to make it nice and short here, not surprised at all. I'm sure you're not surprised at all. I mean, prosecutors made it clear that they believe the adoptive parents induced one of the kids to commit or assist in the commission of one of the crimes. I believe it's for the willful cruelty crime. And from the early onset of this investigation, police took the kids away from the parents. I think it was a day or 2 since, the kids, Orrin and Orson, reported missing. The state took them and said, we're going to hold on to them during this investigation. We asked law enforcement early on, hey, why is that? California City Police Chief John Walker tried telling us that in these types of cases, this may be protocol on top of whether we found evidence of neglect or abuse for any of the other kids. So the fact that, the judge is granting this for, the parents not being able to see or talk to the other kids, not surprising at all.
Matthew Wallace, AV News Crew, check out these videos. Unbelievable work you're doing out there, Matthew. Let me ask you, what do we know about the family, the children, did you ever talk to anyone out there who saw Orrin and Orson West in Cal City?
Well, a couple of the neighbors stated they saw children right after they moved into the location. But what they said was they couldn't guarantee it was the toddlers. But there were young children at that home. And originally it was stated something about moving in October, but then recently we were given information that they actually got the keys for that home on September 10th for the Cal City home.
September 10th, and that puts us in the time frame of when these murders allegedly occurred, according to the indictment. That's huge.
Yes.
Erica Morse, your thoughts about this development and these other 4 children that were in that home?
Well, you're dealing with minors who may be witnesses. You're dealing with minors who may have involuntarily assisted in aspects of this crime in order to preserve their own safety and save their own lives and the lives of their siblings. It is no surprise that we are at a point of a criminal protective order. It is no surprise that that everything is sealed regarding this case now, that there is a gag order in play. These are children, and these are children whose lives are completely uprooted and changed forever. And the level of trauma that exists now has to be dealt with in the long term, but also children are so easily persuaded, and it makes no sense why the parents, both from the biological and the adoptive standpoint, were even allowed business with these kids the moment they were removed from their care. I think that this should have been done initially, but I'm just glad that it's done.
Bobby Chacon, what does this tell you about what's going on?
Well, I think this tells me something that is common to these types of cases, and that is that the day these boys were deceased, were killed, as alleged in the charging truth, is not the first time this story begins. I think there's going to be a pattern of abuse, a long-term running pattern of abuse of these 2 and maybe other children at the house, which is why they have to be protected, because they're going to be witnesses to that pattern of abuse that was taking place in that house. That pattern of abuse might have been already heard by the grand jury. Certainly, if they have that evidence, it will be heard by the jury at trial. So I think that this protective order is moving in that direction to say, we're going to tell a story here. The prosecution is going to tell the story of what was happening inside this house in the months and maybe even years prior to these murders taking place. So I think that in these cases, it is common that these children have witnessed a pattern of abuse that led up to and escalated to the murder of these 2 boys. And so I think that that's what the protective order helps, is to isolate the perpetrators from potential witnesses. You never really want that happening. And so I think I agree with Eric. I think it should have been done right away as soon as they were charged. But it's good that it's happened now.
I'm looking at a picture of the parents. There they are. They were wearing masks that day when they gave that infamous press conference. I'm glad they did, though, because we got to hear them and judge them to a certain extent in terms of their story. Bayan Wang, the part of the story to me that I still don't get, and I've covered many cases where young children have died and parents have been accused, but it's usually one child. And when it's one child, the backup is always, it was some accident, right? It was something, but this is 2 children. It can't be an accident with 2 children.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what the big question is, and that's what the prosecution is going to have to prove. How that all ends up, I have no idea. Remember, there's still no bodies found in this case, but they cited direct circumstantial evidence that led them to believe that Orson and Orrin West are sadly no longer alive.
Matthew Wallace, and again, we have not found Orrin and Orson, right? They're still missing. They are somewhere. They're somewhere. They could be somewhere in that Cal City location. They could be in Bakersfield. We don't know. Tell me about on the ground in Cal City, the search, what the area is like, where people looked, how long these searches were, and things that you noticed along the way.
In regards to searching in the area for Cal City itself, the Cal City area, it's a very large small town, which means there's a small population, but a very large area.
Whoops. Sorry about that. Intermission. We're back.
And it's mostly desert area. So, I mean, there's mines out in that area. There's little, there's a couple small lakes close to there. And in regards to searching, people search for days and days and days. I mean, people are still searching. We went out to lakes, we walked rivers. But when you start looking at what's coming out nowadays, you know, where do you really start? You have to start all over from the very beginning and try and go back actually a few months.
Yeah, expand on that. What do you mean?
Well, originally on December 21st of 2020, they were called in as missing children. Okay. And now it's stated that the crimes actually happened back somewhere in the month of September. So now you have to grab everything and you have to try and go back and, you know, I'm going to go back. I'm going to start talking to neighbors again because there were neighbors that did say that they heard what sounded to them as domestic violence coming from that home.
Wow.
In Cal City. But do we know that the boys were there? No, we do not know for sure that the boys were there. We don't know if the boys made it from Bakersfield to Cal City or not. Which, you know, it leaves a very large opening. And it's been a very unusual case. Very unusual.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like there's a huge cover-up, is what it appears to be.
Erica Morris. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish, Matthew.
Oh no, I mean with the adoptive family. I mean, even if you go back and you look at the videos, even after the boys went missing, Jacqueline's mother showed up with some other foster children to that home to visit.
Let me ask you, Erica Morris, because that kind of leads to my question: Is there any? I'm trying to get to why. Like, I'm going to presume here they're presumed innocent, but if in fact prosecutors are correct that these parents murdered these children, is there any incentive to adopt a child and murder it? I don't understand why anyone would do that.
If you will remember my thoughts from our previous conversation on this case, I said it is time for us to stop paying foster parents. I firmly believe this, and Bobby and I know we agree on this subject. Children should not be transactional. And oftentimes when you see parents adopt children, their behaviors and their attitudes change. What they were once willing to tolerate, and I say that with air quotes, out of perhaps children with troubled backgrounds, traumatized children who have been victimized already, and who have extreme behavioral disorders and issues. Those go from being a payday, so to speak, to a burden. And I have seen it too many times.
I think we lost our connection with
Fine.
We just lost the connection there. Just a moment. Go ahead. Finish.
Okay, so we have to stop making children transactional, and we need to start really doing further in-depth background checks, and I firmly believe psych evaluations on anyone who wants to be an adoptive parent.
Absolutely. Well, Brian Lang, we appreciate your time. I know you're busy out there in Denver, but we bring you on every time we do the story. You know it from the beginning. Matthew Wallace, thank you as well, Matthew. I know you're busy today too. AV News Crew on YouTube. If you want more on this story, check them out as well. Erica and Bob, you're staying with us because when we come back.
All right, everybody. That is Court TV, Vinny Politan. Thank you, Vinny, for the information and covering the story of the children. I'm going to go ahead and get started with my commentary. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for the kind compliments. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to join the Queen and hear what she has to say pertaining to this case. As I said, I've already done a video on the protective order a few days ago. Please check the YouTube library for the said content and verification of all sources. This source is Court TV. He had a guest panel, Mr. AV. News Crew was on as well, who is a current YouTuber. I'm going to also touch on a few points that he made in the said commentary, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining me. Got 141 viewing. God is good. Amen. Prayers that the truth comes out pertaining to the boys and their location so they can be buried properly. It is inhumane to, one, take a life for no reason, and then to discard a human, plural, out like trash, wherever that may be. We, as citizens of this country, we tend to bury our decedents, or they go the other way, by incinerator. But either way, it is the choice of the family how they want to bury their loved ones. Kids seen. Neighbors, we're going to start with Mr. AV's commentary. Kids seen at the house. Because, see, there was conflicting information about that. Some neighbors said they saw kids. Some neighbors said they didn't. The lady behind their house said she never saw anybody coming or going, playing outside, noise, anything. The house directly behind their Cal City house. So who saw children coming and going? He also mentioned something about domestic abuse, that there were allegations that someone heard something. So what did they hear? How many times did they hear someone screaming, hollering? Did they ever see anybody being pushed, shoved? Trezell hitting the wife, hitting the children. What was the reason to move to Cal City? Many of us have asked that question 1,000 times. Why did this couple move to Cal City? When you go to the Chris Thorne show, a few moons back when the story first jumped off, he talked to the woman who owned the house. From my understanding, during his brief conversation with her, she had been in limbo with the West pertaining to monies to be given for the house, for the purchase of the house. My understanding, it started like in the spring of 2020, because I always question, well, why would anyone go back and forth with somebody about a house they're trying to sell? Why would you be wrangling with someone and you're trying to get rid of your house? So that was suspicious to me. And naturally, she gave her commentary that he came with a suspicious looking fella, mob type looking fella. Who was that guy? What was the point of that guy? Did he bring that guy to intimidate this lady? I don't know, because I wasn't there. I don't know how much is truth to her allegations pertaining to the transaction of she and Mr. and Mrs. West. But what I find interesting is, would she lie about how long it took her to sell her house? I can't really see somebody lying about that, only because what's to lie about? You either had a smooth transaction or you didn't. Her commentary says she didn't. So what's the truth? When did they go look at that house? When did they put in a bid, offer monies for that house? Did it take 5-6 months to purchase the house? And what was the motive for leaving? Because now we have a timeline of September 1st to September 30th of the children's deaths. So we can knock that out of the ballpark of them moving in September, October. Then what's with the spring situation of them going to look at the house allegedly in the spring of 2020 and wrangling with this woman about the house? Were they putting a plan in motion? Were they wanting to get out of the city for various reasons? Is it a matter of they were doing things they didn't have no business doing illegally and with the children to want to move out to Cal City? Or everything just fell into place September 2020, September, October, which is now the same month allegedly the children were murdered. It's a very odd situation when you don't have verification of a timeline of looking at a house, purchasing a house, but we do have a timestamp of the children's death, which is the month of September. But what I find interesting is that, okay, we kill all that. Anytime you see anything in the chat, just block them. Don't say anything to anybody in the chat about anything. From here on out, you see any mentioning of anybody, block them. I'm tired of this, okay? I don't have time for this. I'm not here to school anybody. I can't even give my commentary. I got to watch the chat and give the commentary. I cannot do both. Anyway, what is the timeline of them searching for the house, bidding for the house, putting money on the house? Did they put money for a house or attempt to put money at the time because they were doing something they didn't have any business doing. Were people talking crazy to them? Or was somebody saying something to them? Was somebody coming around inquiring about the children? See, we don't know because nobody's come forward to say anything. But as I said, the best part of the story is getting a timeline pertaining to the children being deceded. Now we have to ask, is this the reason for them moving to Cal Cities? So this is why I said we don't have anything. We don't really know what's the truth. If they were already in process of buying the house and it took too long because of the money situation that this woman was claiming, or what? Very, very interesting information. Who are the witnesses pertaining to knowing that the children were dead? Who knew that the children were deceased? The parents obviously knew because they concocted this hoax of calling 911 to say that the children were missing. So that means both parents are complicit in knowing that the children were gone and how they got gone. That's why they both have been indicted for second-degree murder, because the state says, I have evidence to show these people enacted a crime with one of the children or more to murder these said babies. That's already been said, and I'm not here to question anything from the state. What I'm questioning at this point are the witnesses. Who all knew that the children were dead, missing? Both parents, their relatives, grandparents, Wanda West, her husband, her other children, Jamal, the other baby brother, immediate family, neighbors. Who all knew that the children were deceased or missing? What version did the West give pertaining to the children? Because those are very pivotal questions, because people are going to want to answer. And I believe down the road, somebody else may be getting an indictment as well, because if it is true that Wanda West said something to the fact that she last saw them in December, I can't remember if she said that. That's just something somebody has said in the chat. I have to have a receipt to that to say, but allegedly that's what someone said she said. I don't know, because she hasn't really talked. So I don't know where somebody would have heard her say when she last saw the children. And naturally, whatever she told law enforcement is also going to play out in court, because what did she tell law officials, she and her family? What did they tell the detectives when they last saw the children, when they had the children? Because Mr. Trezell put his mother or the other grandmother in the mix of having the children the weekend before the 911 call went into the dispatch. That was mentioned. Oh, the other children are with the grandparents. But he did not say my mother, my father, or her mother, father. He just said grandparents. So when he said that, naturally law enforcement would have gone to either grandparent or both to ask them, did they have the remaining children? What was the answer? Were the remaining children with the grandparents? And which grandparents were they visiting? How many children participated in the deaths of the boys? One child, two children, or all four? When did Trezell and Jacqueline last see their four remaining children? Because that's also going to be pivotal and probably be played up by the defense. Because the defense will say, let's just say hypothetical, that Jacqueline and Trezell West recently saw their children. I don't know if it's true or not, and I'm not making any claims. This is just for conversation. Let's say the couple saw their children recently, before their arrest. That is going to be nasty business in a court of law if the state says we had information that the children were dead week 1. That's going to be bad. Because what the defense is going to say is, well, you hadn't brought an indictment yet. You're gathering your information to say that these two are complicit in the deaths of the children alongside other children. But you all still didn't tell the state, possibly don't let them see the kids because the missing children are not missing. They're missing because you don't have their bodies, but they're dead. We have information to say that they're deceased. So that will be some nasty business in a court of law if it is proven that Jacqueline and Trezell West still saw their children recently when Ellie knew that the kids were dead. So I'm going to go back. When was it official that law enforcement knew the children were deceased? They said one weekend, information was turned over to Bakersfield Police Department from Cal City. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the information? Is it the children? Are the children the eyewitnesses and also culprits? They told detectives, therapists, whomever, that they were witnesses and culprits to the murder of their own siblings. And this couple still had access to the kids. It's very baffling, if indeed this is true, because this is going to look bad for the state that you all had knowledge that the children were dead and did not inform the state. So I'm going to ask that question. Did the police and the state office, DA's office, notify Department of Human Services that you have information that the children were deceased? Lord have mercy. Pattern of abuse was mentioned in this commentary. What is the pattern of abuse? Did Jacqueline and Trezell West abuse the children that are missing early on? When they first got the children in foster care, did they abuse them together, simultaneously, separately? The other children that are allegedly were foster, but now they say are adoptive, did they also abuse them? And did they also abuse their own children? Hello, Thomas, how are you? Did they abuse all of their children? Did they abuse the missing babies together? Was this a tag team scenario of abusing these babies and also their other children? Will they go get other children that have been in their care to testify to how they were treated by Jacqueline and Trezell West? That would be very interesting information. If they go find other children who have lived in their home, that would be very devastating news if we find out there are more children who were also abused by this couple. And also, let's just say for the record, this was an intricate plan on part of the state to let them see their parents for information to gain for court. But that still would be cruel to allow these people, supervised or not, still would be cruel. That's one point that was mentioned by myself and somebody now in the chat, that perhaps this was an intricate plan to gain information from the West. If indeed they knew the children were deceased 1 week after the 911 call and told the state, let them continue to see their children because we have information that the children are dead, and we need to gain information from the West to see if they will slip up and say anything to the children. So is it perhaps that the visits were recorded? Did they bug the room? Okay. Why kill both children? Why were both children murdered? Because as people have said on this court TV program recently, why kill two children? That's something that most people can't wrap their head around. It has been proven one child killed in a family, but not 2 and 3. You understand what I'm saying? You rarely hear of multiple children being murdered unless it's a parent that, I don't know, went off the deep end, had some mental issues, or just plain old didn't want the children around, killed them. So why did Jacqueline Giselle West kill these kids, allow their children to kill the children, or help out, however it went? What was the motive for killing the children? Did they kill the children at the same time? Some have you asked that? It's a very interesting question. Pivotal too, especially when we have a timeline of September 1st through September 30th. Why they have that timeline is very strange to me, because as I said, I didn't know if they taped them killing the kids or what. But then, as I've told you, when you make a video on your phone, there's a timestamp of when you take a picture and also when you make a private video. It all has a timestamp through the Google Photos. So I don't know how the September 1st, September 30th is coming about. That'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in court. But why kill both children? Did they kill both children at the same time? Did they kill the children separately? And if so, let's say they killed them both together at the same time. Were the children discarded at the same time? See, that's something people don't think about. It's a morbid thought, but it's going to play out, I'm sure, in this trial. Were the children murdered the same day? Were they discarded same day? Were they discarded together or separately? If the children were killed separately, did he double back and put the second child with the first child? Very morbid, but as I said, it will come out in the trial anyway, so we're asking it now. We know that these two are complicit now because of what has been brought forth in the charging statements by the state of Kern County. They both lied to law enforcement about their children missing. So either way, no matter who participated, didn't participate, because I do not know what the evidence is, they are both complicit and guilty because they both stood by and put their stamp on a 911 call into the Cal City Police Department saying that their children are missing. So therefore, they are evenly yoked in the lie pertaining to the children. And now that the children have been deemed deceased, this is why they both are being charged for second-degree murder. They're both complicit. No matter one stood and orchestrated and made a child do something or more children, if one sat in another room, didn't say anything, it doesn't matter because you both put your time stamp on the lie of the 911 call. And when you decided to say, yes, the children are missing, and you knew they were not, because everyone's been battling back and forth, who was the orchestrator, who was the killer of the kids. Well, in the end, it's not going to matter because they both lied to the news. They both lied to 911 dispatch and the detectives that the children were missing, when we now have a timestamp of 3 months beforehand of their deaths. So how are you going to talk your way out of whatever evidence the state has against you? Very, very, very disturbing news. As I said, both are complicit. Thank you for joining me. They mentioned the searches. Many searches were exacted in search for the children. And as I said, and as most of you know, the children are still missing. Jacqueline and Giselle West have not given up the location of the children. They both pled not guilty in the state courtroom. So what we have to ask ourselves is, where are all the searches? Why did you search in those said locations? They also searched out of state. Did they get information from pings from the cell phones and devices? Did they get pings to come back from the evidentiary searches and drops from the phone and found their phones to ping in various locations in the state of California and outside of the state of California? Are we now talking about possibly the children being discarded out of the state of California? Because for you to go out of the state means you either got a ping back or somebody told you they went out of town, or you have records to show they went out of town, such as debit card, credit card receipts, checks written out of town. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Do they have receipts of them spending money for gas, food, out of state during that time, the month of September? Very pivotal information. Very interesting information. Where did they go the month of September? Did they go out of town? Nevada, New Mexico, Mexico, Arizona, Washington, Oregon. It's been said they have family in, I believe, Oregon or Washington State, from my recollection. Is it possible that the children are discarded out of state? Because you have to ask yourselves, why did this investigation leave the state of California? Where are all the locations that they searched? And is it because you got eyewitness testimony to seeing them in these said areas, phone pings, device pings, and also information from credit cards, debit cards, checkbooks? Thank you so much. You also hear the bio father speaking briefly in this commentary that he got the boys. Well, one could argue that point. You were not around, obviously, because you don't have custody of your children. But as I've stated in my previous commentary, that there are pictures that were posted to social media by the bio mother where they are all in a photograph, and you will see that in this said video with Vinny Politano on Court TV, of he sitting in a chair with all 5 children. I don't know how many he has, but the 2 babies that are missing were infants at the time, and he was holding them, and 3 other children were sitting outside of him. So one could say, you did have access to the babies, so what happened? And you're also suing the mother and the state, which for all those who were rallying for these bio parents, bio mother, what do you all have to say now to the fact that he's suing the bio mother and also the state of California for neglect and wrongful death, which means he knew the children were dead months ago and never alluded to the fact to the public that he knew, because naturally they had not brought forth an indictment until this year, March. So he couldn't say anything. But I think some of you might need to sit back and assess the situation properly, because when you were riding for the bio mother, you had no idea about the bio fathers, and nor did you think later that the children were dead all this time, and everybody knew they were dead, obviously. Somebody knew. And you're just not hearing in March 2022 because of an indictment, plural, and now the father is suing the bio mother. But where he messed up in that commentary is that the earlier video I played you with him talking about his children to KGET News is he says he was with her. The commentary says they were partners. His partner. So I'm assuming they were speaking of the bio mother. So how is it that you wouldn't have knowledge of your child if you were dating the bio mother at the time that each child was taken out of the state's custody? Make it make sense. The commentary specifically says he was with the partner, which I'm assuming they're speaking of the bio mother. at the time the children were removed from her care. And for those who have not paid attention to the story, the children were removed 1 year apart from each other, not taken at the same time. So I don't think that's a great comment to say, I got my boys, whether they're here or not. You never had your children. Because if you had your children, sir, we wouldn't be talking about 2 children that are deemed deceased. It wouldn't be a story. Did the children get discarded in Bakersfield, California, or Cal City? Did the children get discarded in Bakersfield, California, or Cal City? Because you see, when you're dealing with psychopaths, that's what I'm going to call them, you don't understand their mindset, and you don't understand how they maneuver. Now, children are smaller to discard than a grown-up. So you can discard a child in anything. So what we have to ask ourselves now is, did they murder the children in that said apartment at Casa Lomas, discard the children, kill the children same day, discard the children same day, or did they keep them for a while? So I know it's a sad, sick thing to think about, but it happens all the time. Because there have been people known to keep deceased bodies in the homes, and they have decayed inside of a dwelling unit. It has happened in New York. It has happened in Houston, Texas. It has happened in many states here in America, where people did not readily discard a body. Because you have to be meticulous in getting the body out as not to draw attention to oneself. And this man and woman would have had to do this 2 times, or they did it all 1 time. And as I said, they were little bitty people, so they would have been easier to discard. So where did they discard them? It would be sick to know that they carried the children deceased into Cal City and discarded them in the general area or the desert, perhaps. Could be in the ocean. I don't know. Not to be disrespectful, but California is surrounded by water. You have no idea. But as I said, smaller children would be easier to conceal and discard. Once again, were the children murdered at the same time or separately? And were they discarded at the same time or discarded separately? And where are they discarded? Near Bakersfield or Cal City or out of the state? Where are the children? Will they tell us where the children are? Foster care came into play in this commentary. The one lady who's a private eye said she doesn't think that foster care parents should be paid. That's a tricky statement because all people have to be taken care of, whether they are little or they are big. And yes, it would be noble for someone to just take in somebody in their house and not expect anything in return. But in the real world, people have to eat. People have to have clothes, soap, water, lights, gas, bedding, food, toiletries, toilet paper, detergent. It's just the way the world is designed. And the government set it up to pay foster care parents to take in their children to relieve the burden of having foster care facilities. Just imagine, it would be considered an orphanage to have a nice sized house or facility with children running around supervised by random strangers. It would be an orphanage. What else would you call it? That's what it's been called. And naturally, they don't get undivided attention in an orphanage. I don't even think we actually have what you would consider orphanages here in America. So should a foster care parent get paid for taking in a child? Now, some will bicker back and forth, the who's and the whys and the wheres pertaining to foster care, that it is a business just for profit. Possibly so, because that's the point. You don't know people. You already got the children from trifling people who didn't want their kids or discarded their children or mistreated their children, hurt their children. So now you're taking the children into a facility and or a private home and hoping the children will fare well with another stranger. Don't you see the sick irony of the foster care shuffle? The child was living with a stranger who gave birth to him or her, or whoever was taking care of him, mother, father, cousin, auntie, whomever. Then that didn't work out. The state stepped in, took the children, placed them over here with Susie May and Dick, and now Susie May and Dick are not treating the children well. It's just a vicious cycle because there are no guarantees when you're dealing with human beings. You don't know people. You don't know people. And no matter if everything checked out for foster caring and adoptions, background checks, financial records, home checks, that still is not enough as far as the mind. You don't have any inkling to the mindset. And that is where your problem comes in. You have to lean on faith because you don't know the human mind. So it doesn't matter about all the things that checked out on the list. They live nice, they look nice, they don't have a criminal record, they're Christians, they're this, they're that. That has nothing to do with the mind. And I think we already know that from the horrible stories we see in the news of people abusing children, their own children, other people's children, fostering children, adopting children. In the end, all that stuff is just good on paper. It has nothing to do with the human mind. Who all are involved in this lie that Jacqueline and Trezell West orchestrated? Because somebody else has knowledge that the children were gone or deceased. What did they tell the family, the immediate family, where the children were when they asked and hadn't seen them? Video chatting, visiting, however it worked. Hey, where are the boys? Hey, where's that other kid? Hey, what did they tell them? What did they tell them? Where the children are. That's going to be very interesting because you see, I believe there were a total of 83 witnesses. 50 testified for the grand jury. So will you get all 50 in court when it's time for the state to try Jacqueline and Trezell West? And will somebody renege and decide to not testify? And what will their reasons be? Probably the obvious. Don't want people to know who they are, have their government name. So who all knew the children were deceased? Who all knew the children were gone or missing? Did somebody come forward and give information? Hey, I haven't seen those kids. Hey, I've been hearing this, seeing this. Did anybody notice any type of pattern of abuse before December 21st? And who did they call and who did they tell? And did the state follow through? And is that possibly the reason why Jacqueline and Trezell West moved to Cal City? What does Wanda West know? Her husband, her sons, immediate family, neighbors. What has she told people about the children? Does she carry the dirty secret that the children were dead? Did she give a public comment that she knew the children were alive and last seen around the holidays of 2020? What is the truth? And will she also be brought forward on charges of aiding these two in the deaths of the two boys? and any other family members. Who are the witnesses? And is this the reason why the children are not alive? It's because somebody got a talking, somebody went a looking, somebody came a knocking for Jacqueline and Giselle West to verify the status of the children. Were they still getting CPS visits for the said children? Because my understanding that 2 of the children were foster, but now the information is changing that they were adopted. So what is the truth? 2 biological, 4 adopted, or 2 biological, 2 fostered, 2 adopted? Which is it? And did the state attempt to locate these 2 for verifications for the status of the children? And that is the reason why Jacqueline and Giselle West moved to Cal City, because they were trying to get off the grid, get out of the way, and not have to stand account for not being able to produce 2 itty bitty spiders. Because in the end, you'll never probably get the truth out of these 2. And that's what people need to prepare themselves for. Because they've already pleaded not guilty to attempted, second-degree murder of the boys. So therefore, they're not going to tell you where they are. And they're not going to give you a motive to why they killed the children. They probably won't speak during trial because it is expected that a defendant keeps quiet and lets his attorney or her attorney do all the talking. Because usually people trip up while being cross-examined by the state. It usually doesn't work in their favor. And as I've told you about planning a murder, "50 ways. Planning it. 100 ways to get caught. There's just no guarantees with these types of cases. And I think a lot of people are hoping that they will do the right thing and tell you where the bodies are. But you have to remember what you're dealing with. They took the children's lives and used their children to help them. So in no way could you ever think these will be the same 2 that will tell you where the children are, because they have pleaded not guilty and still are not talking or turned on one another for a plea deal. So why would they tell the truth about where the children are? Because in order to say the children are here, that means you've just forfeit your not guilty plea. And you're pleading guilty to murder. It's a very sad, sick, and pathetic story about 2 children who did not ask to be here. They didn't choose their bio family, parents. They didn't choose their foster care parents, and nor did they choose the West family, and nor did they choose to be murdered and discarded out like trash. I don't think anyone would want to be in their shoes. But sadly, many people and children have ended up in the same shoes as the West children, unfortunately. I pray that there will be reforms done with our state systems, that they get enough people that they can hire to do a diligent job, no matter what capacity they are hired, that they are diligent. Because the worst thing is to have someone in that line of work not being genuine in spirit to do the correct thing, to have a bad attitude, to not care, to not follow through, not follow up. So let's say, for the record, DHS followed appropriate protocol in choosing the West family. But what they did not know is that they had a deviant mindset. So I pray for every state agency that they hire appropriate people to do the paper shuffling, home visits, supervisory positions, and also better choosing and protocol with all foster care parents and adoptive parents. But once again, no matter if they follow protocol or not, still has nothing to do with the mindset. And that's something a lot of you are not wanting to realize. The protocol can be followed, but that has nothing to do with the mindset. If the person is deviant and they're not fostering and adopting the children for the right reason, be it for money, be it for clout, to show off to their friends and family that they're a good person, because a lot of people do this. They take in children thinking they're doing the right thing, wanting to do the right thing, or showing off to people that, oh, I'm a great person, when they have no intention of being a good foster parent or adoptive parent. It happens all the time. People do things for show. It's obvious. You hear the stories all the time. He was a great guy. She's a nice lady. I can't believe it. You got the wrong person. They would never do this. They had my kid. They did this. They talk nice. Maybe to you. But people are different people with different people. I think that's been proven. People favor their children over their other children. People favor other people over other people. People favor their own brothers and sisters over other brothers and sisters. So people need to stop acting like it doesn't happen, because it does. People favor other people over other people all the time. But one thing I want people to understand, and don't get this twisted, just because you assume someone favored one children over the other or more does not mean they are not sick. Because if you want to say, well, they favored their bio children, you don't know that because you weren't there and you weren't in the household with Jacqueline and Giselle West or any other deviant parents. Doesn't matter if they did favor one child over the other. That's irrelevant. The point is they murdered these kids. And that means they had no business rearing children, their own or anybody else's. And that is where the problem is going to lie with people in general, whether they have their own children, they foster children, or they adopt children, take in children, babysit children, run a daycare, teach school. It is all the same. You do not know people. So you have got to get out your head the theory of protocol. That shit is just good on paper. Good job, nice looking, Christian, work here, 2.5 cars, 1 cat, 1 dog. That has nothing to do with what's going to happen when the door shuts. That's when the people take their mask off and reveal themselves. It's behind closed doors. It has been proven, it has been seen all over the world by man and by woman. You do not know people. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Thank you for the super chats. God bless all of you. I will be back with more stimulating conversation and commentary, breaking news, various topics. Thank you all so much for joining me. Have a safe weekend. That's my commentary pertaining to the protective order. It's going to come down to who all knew about the children being gone or deceased. Who all played a role in hiding the truth that the children were gone or deceased? Did the state know that those boys were dead and continue to let Jacqueline and Giselle West see the remaining children? And how is that going to fare in court? Because as I said, that would favor the defense immensely. And where are the boys? And will we ever get the truth to where they are located? Because what you have to ask yourself is the obvious and most morbid of questions. Are the children discarded together? Or are they discarded separately? And what do the parents, grandparents know? And are they also culprits to aiding in the disappearance of the West children? And will they also be brought in and arrested for aiding their children, family members, in the cover-up and the deaths of the West children? Thank you so much for joining me. You all have a safe weekend. God bless all of you.